listening to The Questionnaire.
Say that again.
You're listening to The Questionnaires.
I've just started. Right here, for your ears, for your eyes.
The Questionnaire.
Get your comic on.
Poke it out, poke it out, poke it out, poke it out.
It's a hot day. Like all the rest. Yeah! This, ladies and gentlemen, is a quest. I am the Unknown Factor, a.k.a. that Wade Wilson of hip-hop. But as per usual, this is The Questionnaire. Over here, we talk comics. Yeah, that's what we do, right? Right, man. We're wrapping up season 2. We're getting real close. And I couldn't find the comic I wanted to throw, unfortunately, because I wanted to throw it right in front of him because we got Scott Wojcik hosting.
Hey, Jay, what's going on?
I'm just annoyed I didn't find your Jay. It's around here somewhere, Scott. I promise. I don't know. I was reading, and I wanted, and I don't know where it is. And whatever, man. Like I get freaking lost, man. You know. And we were getting ready to wrap up season 2. Like I said, it's been phenomenal. There's a couple pan cons that just dropped. We got several different quests back. I mean, I recommend you all check them out. I can't even remember everybody at this point. We just had Dom on from Mess Bucket Comics, which was phenomenal, getting into wrestling and all of this. So many things. And we're going to kick off season 3. We're going to try and kick it off as hard as we possibly can. Right? But we're not here to take anybody down with us. We're here to uplift you. Yeah, but a gentleman who might be down just to take everybody down. Yeah, Matthew Rosenberg. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome,
Thanks for coming on, man. Like that was I love it when I don't have to hit up great creators to come on the show, man. I'm gonna be real honest. Like
Sure.
When I just get an email and they're like, hey, I'd like to come on your show, and I'm like, that's dope. But if you Google just your name, man, there's another particular individual that shares the same name.
There is. He's a writer for the Times. He won the Pulitzer. Yeah, we know each other.
You know one another?
Yeah, just from getting each other's hate mail. Yeah.
That's even better.
Wait. No, before we go into anything else, because I was skimming his real quick, and I was like, wait, this don't seem right, because I've read some of your work, Matt, and I was looking through, and I was like, wait, what? This don't say anything about comics. Does he read? Wait, what? Because I wasn't familiar with the other one. I was familiar with you, and not because I'm a comic nerd, man. I've been a comic nerd since I could read. I've read comics, you know what I mean? And then it got into the fact of some of the things he said about the thing on the Capitol and all that. So, what kind of hate mail did you get?
Yeah, all of it. He's a political correspondent, and so he gets it from every angle. And I'm an X-Men writer, so I'm a former X-Men writer, so I got it from every angle. And people who search and find the wrong one send some unfriendly DMs. Got a couple threats. Got a couple, you're a traitor, that kind of stuff. Pretty good.
Interesting.
Sure.
I'm curious what he got on the other end.
He definitely got some people who were mad about the X-Men. But I don't think he gets it as much as I get it from his people. But he's got a I think he comes across less internet savvy people's desks, so they get a little confused.
That just the fact that you got a political correspondent and people are emailing him look, man, what you did with the X-Men, and then you, who has a prolific career writing so many things. There was a multiple man book in 2008. I didn't know that. I really need to find this. There was a time span for like 5 years where I wasn't reading comics. There was other things, and it annoys me, some of the things that I missed, and that's one of them. I love Jamie Madrox.
He's the best.
Phenomenal character, and oh my God, if I could have a power set, give me that. No, man, think about it as a creative, right? If you could go, okay, there's 4 of me now, right? You go do that, you go do that, you go do that. Absorb them all at the end of the day. You know everything you did.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, it'd be good.
that's like, as a real world practical power. Oh, I want it so bad. I want it. I want it. I want it so bad. Matthew, I'm not even gonna lie, man. I'm not. I'm not even gonna lie. I gotta know, how did you respond to those hate mail that you got though when they were on the political end? Like, did you feel like you like, are there points where you're like, did you get to a point where you were like, I gotta get witty with this because this is just becoming annoying?
No, mostly I was just like, hey, you got the wrong guy. And then it was always funny because people would just be like, oh, they'd be very polite about it. They'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And then a lot of them would ask me if I knew his email or like had his Twitter name. And I'd be like, look, you took the loss today. Like, just get off the internet. You had a bad one. You didn't do the basics. Like, no, I'm not helping you continue this. Like, go take a walk, go get some fresh air. So it was a lot of that happened a lot. Yeah.
No, the best response, in my opinion, Matt, to when they ask for that, you should just been like, no, but I really recommend you should go read some comics. They might help relax your mind.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I should have been
Yeah.
pushing my work. I'm not always as savvy as I could be, I guess.
I mean, hey, look, man, as a man that should definitely push this show more than I do, and follow us on TikTok and all those things, and apps that I personally hate because I prefer long form content to short form content. But I'm putting out some short form content because apparently that's what works. But whatever. I fully understand as far as the thing of promotion. That is a whole ordeal. But I think
Sure.
you've had the benefit of obviously working with the big two on some very, very large titles, the X-Men and the DC versus Vampires, to where it gave you a level of exposure. And I'm curious, as a writer, and this is conversations we had with some people, if let me, you know what, let's take it this way, and then I'm going to take it that way, and then I'm going to take it that way, and we're going to take this 20 different ways because that's what I do, right? But if you had somebody that walked up to you, Matt, and was like, I want to write comics, I have this idea, and it was nothing to do with the big two, what kind of advice would you give them to make that book really, really work?
I think the advice I always give bums everyone out, which is save your money. Money makes the job much easier. If you can't draw, you need to pay people who can. You need to pay people who can letter and color and design and all those things. And your life is just easier if you've in comics if you've got money. So that's always the first thing I say. Is just like, if you really care and you really want to do it, stop spending money on dumb stuff and put it, put the dumb stuff down for a couple months or years and make it happen.
Do you realize that, because I assume a lot of those people are purchasing comics, so technically you just said, look, stop buying comics so you can make comics.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it depends how much money you have, but yeah, like, I think reading comics is so important to making comics. I think it's really like, you need to sort of immerse yourself in the language of comics and what's going on and know what people are doing and be inspired by them. But at the same time, like, you don't need to spend your whole paycheck on comics every month if you're trying to make them. It's not the best, but you certainly don't need to spend your paycheck at the bar or at the video game store or whatever it is. Like that, those are things that on Uber Eats you don't learn to make mac and cheese at home. It's gonna make your comics career go a lot better.
Or at least just get off and drive to the place. Like, that's one of the things. Sorry, like that. Uber Eats, or like that. I don't know, man. I feel like to a certain degree, it's made the world. And there's so many different examples of this, but like lazy. You know what I mean? Like, like you don't even walk into the store and pick out your stuff anymore. You literally just pull up and have them walk out. Like, are you serious? Like look. Yeah. And there are circumstances where that's fine if you're handicapped or this or that, or like you literally have mobility issues. Please use that service. I'm not discrediting it in any way, shape, or form for the people that actually need it. But if you are an able-bodied individual, what are you doing that you can't walk around and get your own stuff? You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
like really, and then you don't even take the time to read at all, right? Right. It's one of those things that drives me crazy. But back to my initial point is I think it's funny because you're someone, like I said, you've established yourself within Marvel and DC. So when you go to launch something that is a creator-owned book,
Mhm.
you have the backing of, oh well, it's Matthew Rosenberg. We know him. He's
Yeah.
written all this stuff, right? And I can think of a lot of other great creators who this same exact example is there for. I mean, I'm not going to go through, and a couple of them have actually been on the show, and it's always been a pleasure. I can't remember who said this, but as far as with on the show, because they were referencing this, like as far as if you can first establish yourself and get it to where, like, if you have that idea and you think that idea is, ooh, this is a great idea, but you're a good writer, you should perhaps try and work it to where maybe you're writing for Marvel or DC and establish yourself that way, and then take that great idea and put it out at that time. I think the greatest example of individuals doing this in the comic book industry would obviously be the creation of Image.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on that concept as far as somebody like having and saving an idea and trying to work your way up within the industry to where you build a name and then using that idea once you already have the name?
I think it's complicated because if you want to make comics, I meet a lot of people who want to make comics and they're like, I have an idea. And it's like, well, that's not a career. You have to have a lot of ideas to have a career. It's a job. You have to come up with a ton of them. But if you have one that's special and you're like, I'm not ready to make it. I don't have the resources. I don't have the resources to sell it. I don't have the resources to make it. I don't have the wherewithal to get it in front of people. I think it makes sense to sort of be like, come up with some other stuff and put that in your back pocket. I think most creators have those ideas that they sort of set aside and are like, this is for later. This is for when I'm ready for it and when I can handle this correctly. I certainly did. I definitely had things that I wanted to make and was like, yeah, I'm not, I don't want to do this wrong. I want to make sure that I know how to do it. And at the same time, like, there are definitely, I meet a lot of people who are just like, I have an idea for a Wolverine story. I want to make it. And it's like, well, you can't really do that. That's like being like, I would like to hit a game-winning home run. I don't want to play for the baseball team. I don't want to, you're like, no, you have to learn how to play. You have to know fundamentals. You probably have to go to the minor leagues. You probably have to go to the, do the majors. Then you get to hit a game-winning home run, maybe.
How many times have you heard that at conventions? People walk up to you and be like, I got a Wolverine, Spider-Man, Hulk, Batman, whatever it may be.
Sure.
And if someone says that to you, what advice do you give in that moment? Like, is it just like, well, dude, go write something else first, ostensibly?
Yeah. I mean, it used to be that you just couldn't. It wasn't even, like I remember Joe Quesada and Dan DiDio when they were running Marvel and DC respectively used to say, like, nobody's first comic is a Marvel comic. Like, nobody's first gig is a Marvel gig, or no one's first gig is a DC gig. Like, and they would say, we're the, it's the Yankees. It's they're the top of the pyramid. You don't start there. That's not really true anymore. There are a lot of people whose first writing gigs is a Marvel gig or a DC gig these days, but I think a lot of them are coming from other fields. So they're coming from TV, they're coming from podcasts, they're coming from journalism. So that makes it a little more complicated, the math of it. But yeah, if you have one idea and you just want to do a Spider-Man book, like, you can't. Like, they're not going to give you Amazing Spider-Man because your idea is so good. They're not even going to listen to your idea. Like, there's no world where they're going to hear your idea.
Yeah.
You have to go make something else that's cool that they'll notice you for. And like, now, you could do other things. You could write a short story that's cool and get it published and send it to them, or you can do a podcast and it's cool and send it to them, or make a short film or whatever it is and send it to them, and maybe you can get in the door that way, which didn't used to be the case. It used to just be like, if you write comics, you can write more comics. But yeah, if you just have a Spider-Man idea and that's all you want to do, you could do it yourself, but Marvel's not going to publish it, and if you try and sell it, they're going to sue you.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's funny that you bring that up because, like, when I have like all these different ideas of my own, right? I've
Sure.
been writing for 20 years, just kind of building stories out and stuff like that. And before I actually even created my first book, I actually started going to shows and I started asking the questions of how do you make it and how, like, all those little things that you need to know before you even start, right? And I got to talk to James Tinian the fourth.
Sure.
And I asked him about that. I asked him because I'm like, you kind of like all of a sudden just swung in and you were writing Batman out of nowhere, right? And I said, was that something that you kind of had in your back pocket ready to go? And he goes, yeah, of course, right? And he goes, if you have that stuff, write it prior, have it in your back pocket, don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
He's like, and if they come knocking, he goes, at least you know. He goes, essentially, he told me, he said that if they come to you and you don't have a story, they're going to be like, see ya, right?
Yeah.
And you'll probably never hear from them again, or unless you have something when they come knocking again or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But he's like, at least this way you have a story in your back pocket and be like, yeah, I do actually have something, and boom.
Sure.
So Jay knows I have a Batman story. I have like a whole bunch of stuff, right? So
yeah. The thing a lot of us say is that line from Ghostbusters at the end where he says, you know, like, Ray, if someone asks if you're a god, say yes. Like, that's how you approach it. Even if you don't have the Batman story. I mean, I've definitely been in rooms where they've been like, you know, I remember they wanted me to do. It was like 10 years ago. It was just starting, and like I had a meeting with DC and they were like, we want you for Superboy. And I walked in to the meeting with Superboy ideas, and then they were like, we're not doing Superboy. They're like, what do you have for? And they just said a different character. I feel like it was like Firestorm maybe or something. And they were like, do you have Firestorm ideas? And I was like, of course. And I was like, no, not really. I don't have any Firestorm ideas. I don't ever think about Firestorm, but sure. You say yes, and then they're like, oh, that's great. And you know, then you bluff for a minute, and they're like, cool, can you type up the idea and send it to us? And you're like, yeah. And you bought yourself enough time, but you have to be ready to roll in some way.
Boom. Yeah. Yep, exactly.
That's I just look. I love the fact of, if you take it from Ghostbusters, if someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes, right?
Yeah.
I absolutely love that, right? And I absolutely love the fact, like Matt said earlier, man, you want to save money if you want to make comics. Now, with that in mind, right, real quick, what I want you to do is listen to a quick word from our sponsor, Studio Comics. Maybe save yourself a little bit on some comics.
With the questionnaire.
So we've edited this awesome commercial together, y'all.
90% off.
We are not giving 90% off.
No, I mean 9.
How about 20?
The only thing that you have to do is enter that code that you have right there.
9.
No, 20.
10.
How about 20?
I'm printing your comics today with Studio Comics Press.
Just use this code right here, right here, right here. Look, I put it somewhere. All right, it's probably actually right here, right? It's right under your chin. It says Quest24.
That code you gotta enter in our website, and then you will get a women discount of 20% in any of the items or products that we have on the website.
9.
20.
9.
20%.
9.
All right.
9.
He wants to give you 9% off. I, as well as Alfonso over there on Studio Comics, want to give you 20% off.
You can get it right there with this amazing code. Just enter it right here. Yeah, just right there. There.
Use that code over at Studio Comics to get 20% off.
Thank you very much. This is a special one for all our friends of the Questionnaire.
Scott's over here trying to take everybody down with us when we're back with Matthew Rosenberg, and I like, now you can talk. Like, at least let me cut back into the show. Jesus, dude.
I'm not used to the sponsor right now.
Yeah. Sponsors intimidating. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I want to talk about we're taking everyone down with us.
Sure.
First off, I'm curious what inspired the creation of Annalise's character and her unique circumstance.
Wait,
sure.
So, before we dig into this, because I just want to say, myself and Scott have gotten a chance to read it, and great read. I highly recommend it. Like I want to make sure, like, when does this release now?
March 26th. So 3 weeks.
Okay. There may be spoilers involved, is all I'll say, because when this drops, it should have just dropped or be getting we'll try and keep it unspoilery, or I will. I don't know about Scott.
Sure. So yeah, well, just to premise it, We're Taking Everyone Down With Us is my new book from Image. It's myself and Stefano Landini, and it's sort of set in a 1970s James Bond world of sexy super spies and power hungry villains. But it's about the Annalise, the 13-year-old daughter of the world's greatest mad scientist, and she sort of goes on an adventure. So that's the premise. Now, to answer your question, Scott, the book has a weird origin because Stefano and I were working together on Marvel. We did The Punisher together for a little bit, and we did a little bit of Star Wars together. But we were supposed to do another book together at Marvel at the start of the pandemic, like before the pandemic. And then when the pandemic hit, everything was paused. Editors were furloughed, and that book sort of fell apart. And Stefano emailed me and said, I'd love to do a book with you. Like, I was really excited, and I loved working with him. So I said, yeah, like I would love to do a book with you as well. And he said, I have this idea. And he said, I want to do this book. And I was like, send it to me. And he sent me, and it was just a drawing of a robot. And I was like, it's just a drawing of a robot, man. And he was like, yeah, I think that's it. Like, I think it's just this like cool robot in a spy story. And I was like, okay. And then I spent weeks and weeks trying to sort of figure out what that would look like. And I love spy stories. I'm a big Bond nerd. I love all that stuff. But I came to the conclusion that I was like, I don't want the robot to be a spy. That doesn't make sense to me. And I was like, well, where does the robot come from? And we sort of invented it. And then I realized that I wanted to do the story not about, like, set in a James Bond kind of world, but not about either James Bond or the villain, but about someone else, a family member of a villain. And so that's the start of Annalise, was like, she's a character who we've built this world that has this this global power struggle, and who is someone who's sort of sucked into it by accident, and who is someone who, like, it falls into their life and sort of, it spills into their world and ruins their life. And so that's where Annalise comes from initially.
Very cool.
That's just, look, man, that's not nice, Matt.
No, that's a bummer.
That's very, very rude to Annalise. Don't know what your problem with her is. To make such like why would you do this to a person, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, that is sort of a common, people always assume when you write comics, there's a section of the audience that always assumes that when you do bad things to characters, it's because you hate them. and so I've spent years being like, no, we actually do bad things to them because we love them, because we want to see them persevere and we want to see them survive the bad things. That's why we care about them. So it's always a little complicated. But I do like Annalise. She's a character I care about a lot, and we are not nice to her in the book, but hopefully by the end it has a happy ending, hopefully.
You have no idea how apropos that is to this particular picture over my shoulder right here at this particular moment. It's kind of, yeah, that hit me in a way that I didn't think any of this interview would. Matt, I know when I had Olivia Briggs on, that there's things with Kill Train that were going to hit certain ways. I didn't expect from reading this that you were like, whatever, dude, that was bloody well rude. And I know, man, like, you're just like, now I'm just confused. And that's fair enough. There's a reason I go by the unknown factor. You know what I mean? What made you decide to make her the daughter of the mad scientist?
I think I think there's an interesting thing in that I find fascinating in sort of stories, which is, and in real life, which is the moment where a young adult sort of figures out who they are in their life, and figures out there's sort of a path laid in front of them, and what do they do on that path, and where do they go? Do they stay with it? Do they stray from it? And so I thought, I want to do that. I want to focus with her on these big choices that are going to decide who she is as a person going forward. I always think that's really fun to play with. And then it sort of just becomes more interesting if, like, well, the path laid in front of her is that laid by a villain. She's everything she's known in her life has sort of come from villainy, has sort of come from a very disturbed man who is her father, who, she's raised in isolation by him. So he's all she knows. That's her family. And she doesn't know it's abnormal. And now she sees that it is abnormal. And what does she do with that information? Is she going to follow in his footsteps, or sort of carve a new path for herself? I think that's a really fun sort of moral study of a character.
Scott, I'm done. Ask a question. I know you know why, and I know Matt's just probably like, this doesn't make sense, and it's fine. Like I said, that's why I go by what I go by. But that's it's all I'll say is in that regard. As far as you say, when it's somebody young and adolescent, I think people don't understand, because the older I get, and it's funny, I actually had this conversation recently with my mother. I was like, the older I get, the more I realize, like, I was dumber every day beforehand. You know what I mean? Like, every day beforehand, the more I realize, like, oh, yesterday I was a little bit dumber than I am today. Like, a year ago, it was worse. And I looked at her and I was like, because, it's my mom. I was like, Mom, I gotta ask you, does this just continue the entirety of life? Is it like the entirety, the more you live, every day, every single day, you're like, oh, well, I was a little bit dumber yesterday. And she looks at me and goes, yeah. And I was like, well, that's annoying, right? Like, just right off the bat. But at the same time, what you just said, I think it's funny. People don't understand that that can happen to you at any age, as far as you can have things happen, And I think it's, like I said, it's very apropos to the picture that's over my right shoulder at the particular moment. It's just kind of, it's intriguing, man. Because I think it's funny. Sometimes we have a villain very close to us, and we don't realize it's a villain until it's put at us in such a manner to where it has very negative connotations to our life. And I can only imagine dealing with that as an adolescent.
Yeah.
What's your problem with her, man? Right? I'm gonna like seriously, man. What's wrong? That's a kid, bro. That's a kid.
Yeah.
Leave her alone.
And maybe we do. Maybe going forward we do. You guys have only seen the first issue. Maybe it's all really good after that. Maybe.
It's funny because this leads into my next question, and there's just an observation that I got just after reading, and I was like, I'm thinking, I love doing this. I love reading something, and I'm like, oh, I've got this idea, right? And I love doing this. So, with the thematic exploration of revenge, this is what I get from it, right? So I've been working on like a Western where it's like this young kid that loses everything, and he runs off and leaves, and then when he comes back to this, his wife and his kid, and then finds them dead, and he's finally like, I'm done. Like, it's got to end somewhere, and he wasn't going to do the revenge thing. He wanted to be a good person. It's been 6 years, and boom, right? So as I'm thinking this, I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, I get a feeling that there's going to be maybe some revenge of some kind, and it's this young girl. It's based on this young girl, and there's a lot going on. How do you think that impacts a young protagonist like Annalise?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like, you guys made the point that like it's that moment of the crossroads of choosing who you are isn't always for adolescents. It's for anyone. Like, and I think that's true. I think that story can hit you, and it could be an 80-year-old, it can be anyone, where you have that moment of just choosing a path and knowing that every step down that path is going to lead you somewhere different. But I think for a young protagonist, for Annalise, like, it really is, there's nothing behind her, it's her whole life is in front of her. Essentially, she's 13, so she's not a baby, but like, she's never left the island. She's very sheltered, and so I feel like it has this dramatic weight, because like you talked about with your story, like, a lot of revenge stories are about the idea of like, well, I might go down doing this, but I have my past to live. Like, I can look back on my past and say, like, there was a better time. She doesn't have that. She doesn't really have this. So for her, any choice she makes, it's going to be her whole life in a lot of ways. It's going to be her future is all she has. And so she is making a choice. If she makes a choice to go down a path of revenge, then that's who she is for the rest of her story, probably. And that, I think, makes it a little, I don't want to say it's heavier, but it's different. It's a different thing. It's not, there's no peace for her. She won't be able to be like, you can't get the John Wick thing of being like, well, when I'm done, I'll be at peace with my wife or whatever. It's, she doesn't have that to look back at. So she's just going to be in a dark place going forward, if that's where she goes.
Very cool. Jay?
What? Wait. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to prep for doing something terrible and maybe something nice all at once. You know what I mean? Because that's how we do over here. But, like, how do you mean no? Pretty much all my facts are shared by other people. When I said you have any fun or unique facts about yourself, all my facts are shared by other people. What? Like,
Sure.
That is the most Deadpool answer to that question I think I have ever, like, how have you not, because you haven't never written the Merc, have you?
No, he's in 2 issues
That
of.
don't count. I meant really write them, man. I meant, like, really, like, do it. Or, like, that was such a Deadpool-esque
4
answer.
issues of Secret Warriors. He's in 4 issues of Secret Warriors. I always was confused why, for a while the Deadpool editor was my Punisher editor, Jake Thomas, who's a great editor, and he put me on the Punisher, and then he'd always be like, "You're so funny," and I'd be like, "Why didn't you put me on Deadpool then?" Like, you put me on the Punisher's not funny. And he was, and at one point I said it to him, and he was like, "Yeah, I think maybe I messed that up." But I was like, "Nah, it's fine. I like the Punisher too." So
I just.
Was there any go ahead, Jay.
Nothing, man. I just like it's for real, because how do you look at somebody? Hey, man, you're really funny. You want to write Frank Castle?
Yeah. That's a weird one.
Did you? You know what you should have done? You should have made him eat Reese's Cups, because that would have.
Sure.
Like, just have Frank just randomly eating a Reese's Cup. Like, I don't know though. You probably couldn't put that in a Marvel book, could you?
Not name it. No.
Yeah.
Probably not.
You
could probably say peanut butter cup.
It's just so weird. Well, it's because, like, and it makes me, like, because of the way properties are and licensing and all that. It's so weird, because I think of the day and age as, like, this, could.
Sure.
It was fairly easily made. You know what I'm saying? But
sure.
It's the same company. But you're probably not ever going to see anything like this again, because of how everything's subsidiarized, I mean, I say that, and at the same time, they did just announce that Marvel and DC are going to do some crossovers again. So perhaps I'm wrong, and perhaps companies are realizing that they need to work with one another to maximize everything.
Sure.
But the fact that, like, you can't, you have to say Cola, you can't say Coke, you can't say Pepsi, you couldn't say Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, which I find so odd, because you think, like, if you can get a comic that's saying that in the comic, and company isn't paying for it, why would they care? Unless, I mean, if you're showing it in a negative light, like,
Sure.
sure. But if you just got like one of the characters drinking from a bottle of Coke, why is that not just free promotion? Especially if it's in a Marvel or DC book.
Sure. That's a question for Coke's lawyers.
No, it's
Yeah,
not. It's a
makes no
question.
sense.
No, dude, it's a question for like 30,000 different lawyers that I frankly don't want to talk to,
That's
Matt.
fair.
All right, I don't want to talk to any of them.
That's fair.
I've like, no, I don't want to talk to any more lawyers for the rest of my life. But that's not foreseeable. But that's a whole other point altogether, right? You know, it's right. But I gotta we. There's a pre-show questionnaire. I really need to update the Patreon so y'all can go and check them out. I really do. Life's been crazy because I know they're very, very far behind. I probably got like 10 or 12 that I need to post. But the last question on that questionnaire is always, what 3 things do you most want to cover? I've gotten some real interesting answers with that, up to including Eric, who said he wanted to talk about the point of the questionnaire. I recommend you go check out Eric's when he was on. It was phenomenal. Scott also.
Yeah, definitely.
But you said the moon landing, which I find intriguing because you say you don't believe the moon landing was fake, but it's fun
No.
to talk about. What I
Yeah.
like, I need full details on your whole opinion of all of this based on your answer to that.
Why I think the moon landing is not fake?
No, because I think it's, look, man, we're not sitting here debating if the Earth's round, all right? We're not.
Sure.
You know what I mean? That's my whole opinion as far as the moon landing goes. But as far as why is it something that you want to get in depth on, and why do you think it's a fun thing to talk about? Is it just the points and counterpoints?
I think it's a fun sort of intellectual exercise only because there are so many motives for it to be fake. There are so many reasons for it to be fake that the fact that it isn't sort of strains credibility. And there's so many things where you're like, well, this is weird. Why didn't they do this again? Or why didn't they go back recently? Or why don't they do this? And there's all these things that are like sort of hard to answer, And so it becomes an interesting sort of conspiracy theory, and a very low stakes one. A lot of conspiracy theories these days are like, if you believe them, people get hurt in the end. There's a lot that are like, well, this is dangerous for a group of people, or this could be really painful for people. And this is one where it's like, well, you either think some guys went to the moon or that you don't think they went to the moon. It doesn't really matter that much. So I like it. I think it's a fun theory, but I do think they went there.
That's
The
interesting.
moon's interesting.
Oh, well, and it's funny, though, because of what you said. I never thought that because with a lot of conspiracy theories, they're very, very high stake conspiracy theories. I mean, like the whole Kennedy assassination. Do you know who T. Casey Anthony is?
No.
Okay. For anybody that when I ran an online radio, he also does comics. He does mainly horror comics. I had him on, and he also was part of MK Ultra. Like he was in the MK. Yeah, man. Like they didn't redact his name. They redacted a lot of that, but his name is clearly listed. So it's very interesting. So it's one of those. I mean, that's a whole conspiracy theory too. But that's one when you discuss it. It has real world and real life effects as well as so many others. Right. That's just like I said. One I had a conversation with somebody that was actually involved with. But you're right. The moon landing. It's not. It's just. It is. It did. That makes it. I never realized the moon landing conspiracy is the funnest, most lighthearted conspiracy I think that exists. In all honesty, even though there are people that get adamant about it, which is like, huh?
Yeah, I think it's fun.
That's an intriguing thought, Matt. Why? See, and I think it's funny. The whole why haven't we been back? My whole opinion would be, okay, well, we kind of know what's there. Why do we want to go to this thing that's above us that we know we really can't do anything with it? You know, like what are you gonna do? I mean, you can't get proper mining equipment up there at this point to like see what you can find. That's gonna like because of the expense that you're going to be doing in doing that, I don't think you're going to get anything back that's going to be worth the expense you're going to be throwing at it. That's why,
Sure.
there's rovers and such on all of these planets. Now, that's man, a lighthearted conspiracy theory. I never thought I'd see the day. I feel like you though, with the current book you're writing from Image, man, and shout out to Image. I love Image so much. There's so many people that have written so many great books that we've had that are specifically from Image, and I'm not going to go through that list, Matt. You probably know. I would assume you know a chunk of them. That's why you emailed us. You have to know
Sure.
a couple. What do you think Image did in changing the landscape of comics when it came out? Because it clearly has. And what do you think it does now to make sure that it still is having an effect on comics that is different than what DC and Marvel do?
I think that Image at the time there was, there's a lot of there's a sort of narrative now that Image, at the start of Image, there was not a lot of independent books, and that's not true at all. There was a ton of independent books. There was, the black and white boom and all that stuff. And there was a ton of great books, and Dark Horse was making great books, and all these people are making great books. What Image did was show that independent books could hold their own against Marvel and DC, could speak to the same audience, sell the same, sell better, take the same place. It wasn't like separate audiences, which a lot of what the indie books were. You had stuff, you had the like the more zine-like indie stuff and the black and white stuff, and then you had Marvel and DC readers, and you had other stuff. You had, your Valiant readers and your Acclaim, whatever they are, Comico or whatever they were. But Image was like, you can be this kind of reader and not just read these two things. And I think they opened that door in a great way. As for now, I think that Image, there's a real simple answer, which is that there's so many comic companies, so many publishers in comics, and a ton of them are great, and they put out great books. Image is a comics company only, and they're one of the only companies that's only a comics company. Every other company is a division of a corporation that is comics is a small part of it, whether they're a phone company or a company that runs theme parks and cruises, or a division of a video game company, or owned by a movie studio, or whatever it is. Their interests are not comics at the end of the day. At the end of the day, they're a small part of a larger company. Image is a comics company. They're not owned by some other conglomerate. They don't have a parent company that is like, make me movies, make me video games, make me toys. They don't have any of that. They are a comics company first and foremost, and they've shown to the industry and the comics creators that it's okay to just make comics and have that be your goal, and that's something that's attainable and good and admirable. And so I think Image is super important. I think Image is sort of the moral true north of comics in some way.
And it's funny that you point that out, because I think we've noticed in the last year something that Image has done by having subdivision with like what is it, Ghost Machine, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And where they have like this whole other creative team building this other universe, where, and it's not directly connected to to Spawn, to all the like all the other stuff. It's its own entity, right? And you're seeing where they're building their own thing, right? Yeah. And like you said, they're focusing on the books. They're not focusing on the movies. They're not focusing on the toys and all of that other stuff. You're really seeing something special be done over that way.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, I love the Ghost Machine stuff, but yeah, I mean, Image has that in a million different, everyone is doing that at Image in a way. Like Ghost Machine is special because it's big and it's huge and it's cool, but like, Radiant Black does that. Even
true.
Down to these small books that are just like, they're their own universe and they're their own little industry. And I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
The one thing I'll tell you, and it's funny, I never thought about that as far as Image just completely being a comic book company. And I would definitely say they're doing that over at Skybound right now as well, which is a part of Image with the Cybertron universe and everything that they're doing over there, which has been phenomenal work. But I'll tell you the one thing that drives me crazy about Image a little, right? And I mean, it's not a bad thing at all. I want to point out, and it's like I love Image. I got so many books sitting up at the bookstore, and I picked up several that I just like. They're killing it with so many different levels from so many different creators, as well as letting creators really work their own thing, which I think is phenomenal. But I want an Image fighting game. Okay, I do. I want a fighting game that's Image, and I don't remember who we were having this conversation with, but it would kind of be ridiculous to be able to pull that off.
Sure.
This just based on the fact that, like, look, if you want, well, we'll just throw out a couple of real big ones. Like, if you want Invincible characters and Spawn, all right, you are not dealing with one person. You're dealing with two on two completely different levels. And if you want to throw in Savage Dragon, that's another. If you want to throw in, like every character you throw in, you pretty much have to go and deal with an entirely different individual as opposed to just. And I think that's why, like, there are corporations, I think, that honestly just don't want to deal with it. And that's annoying because I don't think they realize the success that they can have in doing that if they could just create a great game like that. But based on how. Because, man, I want Image Super Smash Bros. All right, that's what I need that in my life.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I totally agree.
Make that happen, Matthew. All right.
That's a lot of work, but I will get on it for sure. Yeah.
So Matthew's done writing comics because he's going to go to that test.
I now get licenses from other Image creators to make a video game. Yeah, that's fair.
And that's all you'll be doing for the next
20 years.
I was going to say 10, but yeah, you're honestly probably more right in 20,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's crazy, but it's also really cool because it allows it to where these comics are your own properties.
Sure.
What do you think about the fact? I kind of want to bring it up. I kind of don't. I kind of do. I kind of don't. I kind of do. I kind of don't. I kind of don't. I kind of do. Right. So we're just going to bring it up because if I'm going to say it that many times, I might as well bring it up. Like the way that the big two have handled their creators, especially knowing that there are these films and, these films are making exorbitant amounts. Exorbitant.
Sure.
And the fact that, sure, there's a lot of work put into it from producers, directors, the people that have to put the screenplays together and all of this. But at the same time, look, I feel like if you're a screenplay writer and you're writing a Marvel or DC film, you already have the work done for you. You just have to translate it to where it's a film and not a comic. You're not. It's not coming up with something from absolute scratch. I mean, there are examples of that, like Kevin Mellon, and he worked on Hitmonkey, and there's not a lot of Hitmonkey story. They pretty much had to be like, okay, well, there's just a little bit, and now we got to run and just make stuff up. So there are cases of that. Why do you think Hollywood doesn't give the credit due very much, in my opinion, to all of these creators?
Because it costs money. You have to pay people for a story, and so they do it very simply. Like Hollywood has a very rigid structure on how they purchase things, and they purchase story. If they want to make your book, if you wrote a book, if something happened to you in real life, they have to pay you for your life rights. If you wrote a book, they have to pay you for your book. They have to credit you a certain way. You negotiate that. When we sign on at Marvel or DC now, for the current creators, now that they understand how the system works, you give your rights away to your story, to ownership of your story, because Marvel doesn't, DC doesn't want to pay you for that stuff. That's just more money to go out. So they don't. They're just big corporations that are trying to save money, as all big corporations try to do.
That's fair. Well, then let's say, I mean, with someone like you who've reached the level you have, and you've made a name for yourself, does it make you hesitant to go back, and does it make you just more want to work on your own stuff as opposed to work with the big two?
No, it's just a different thing, you know. It's you know, you wouldn't go to a contractor and say, is it weird to, you know, put up drywall in a house that you don't get to live in at the end of it? It's like, no, I know what I'm doing. I know when I'm tightening the nut on a car in the Ford assembly line, that I don't keep that car at the end of it, that they sell it.
Okay, so let's switch. So with that is under, because it's a play box. Yeah. There's a sandbox, and that sandbox exists. Yeah. So, are there ever times where you are hesitant, like if you have an idea for a new character, right?
I don't ever put new characters in Marvel or DC books.
Okay, see, that's...
I don't do it for two reasons, and it's not just because I don't want to give them free stuff. I don't particularly want to give them free stuff, but also I'm a huge nerd. Like, I love this stuff, and probably if you dig around, whatever I'm going to make, they've already made in some version, and I can find it. And it's more fun for me to be like, oh, you know what? Rather than have this character that I'm going to need to create here, like, oh, I can use Resurrection Man, or like, oh, instead of that, there's some weird mutant kid who only appeared in 2 issues, and he can come do this thing. Like, that's fun to me. I like playing with the toys that exist. I don't. You go into a toy store and you're not like, I wish my toy was here. You're like, I want to play with these toys. That's how I view it. I just like playing with their stuff.
I just want to point out, there's a gentleman that helped run or helped create the company that you're putting that book out on, that very much went into a toy store and went, sure, I wish my toys were on the shelf.
Sure. Look, my desk over there has 8 McFarlane toys of DC vs. Vampires, of toys that I created. You know, they're my characters. Todd's company built them, designed them. I love them. They're great. But that's just me being like, what if Shazam was a vampire? I didn't make something new for him. I just made him have sharp teeth.
How crazy is that? Can I say that one of the guys that created Image made a toy company and made it so successful that he works with Marvel and DC now?
I mean, Todd's a genius. Todd's amazing.
I will not disagree. And if you want to come on the show, Todd, we'd love to have you on, right? You know, you got to try. You got to try. What are you going to do, man? I know that man's probably... hopefully he's very busy in getting that Spawn movie finally made, because I really honestly am looking forward to such things. All right, sure. As far as like that, I will, because just, you know, the technology is where it needs to be for that film to be done the way it needs to be done. It's just, because, you know, you can make the Hulk look real. Even though I'm sure if it gets done, someone will complain that Violator's teeth was off kilter a little bit. Like, because
sure,
that's what people bloody well complain about anymore, man. You know, I don't freaking understand it all, right? I don't. I really don't, man. I want to know, so how long on this book, though, on Image, do you guys have a set amount of issues that you're running? Or
yeah, we do. It's just 6 issues. I like a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so, you know, I'm not going to say we won't maybe come back to the characters at a later date, but we had a story we wanted to tell in 6 issues, and that's what we've always planned. So we're just doing a 6-issue miniseries. You know, we just got our sales numbers today, and they were very nice. And so it is tempting to be like, we're gonna do more because we're making money. We're not starving to death. But I want to prioritize making sure that we tell the story we want to tell first.
Yeah, that's amazing here. That's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
And with what you're doing, it's very much something that you could create a universe within based on the fact of how you're doing it. I mean, I would be curious to see you do this 6 issue arc and then show another aspect of this world just based on the one issue of what I've seen so far.
It is it's funny you say that, because that is basically like me and Stefan always wanted to do just the 6 issue book. Like I told him the story, he's like, I love it, let's do it. And it wasn't until around issue 3 that I was like, man, I have so many things I would like to play with here. There's so many like weird tangents we could go off on. And he emailed me and was like, man, I really love this world. Like there's just a lot of fun stuff in here. So we have talked about doing more maybe down the road, and we'll see. Maybe we will someday.
Amazing.
Why you gotta tease such things, man? I swear on my life, man. All I know is, Matt, we're gonna have to have you on in season 3 for PanCon, and we're just gonna get you with a bunch of creators together, and we're gonna talk about something either really serious or really silly. We do both on PanCons, just so y'all know out there, right? Right? Because, what are you gonna do? Now, I do want to let everyone know, like, look, Scott and myself have both gotten to read issue 1 of this. And I say go pick it up. Especially, like, from the futuristic aspect with the robots. You've got so you're kind of touching on sci-fi there. You've got the James Bond bit with it then mixed in. And just, your dad was really creepy. Like,
sure.
Like, you ever, I swear, man, I've had so many, like, writers on here. And sometimes I think you guys need therapy, right? I do.
Yeah, we do.
But yeah, see, Scott agrees and he writes. And that's why when Doug Wagner was on, I was like, look, I need to know if Doug has a therapist. I'd like a recommendation, because I think I might need it, because
Sure.
I mean, you've read Doug's work, and I don't know why Doug's not in therapy. But then Doug's like, that's why I write comics.
That's that's why we do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what the writing's for.
All right.
Saves us money.
This is why I've started writing a few comics, and now Matt's got me inspired to, like, ooh, I run a podcast. Maybe I can just pitch to Marvel.
There you go.
Don't get my freaking hopes up in that, dude. I don't think anything I'm writing right now, I think if I handed it to Marvel, they would look at me and be like, we are not the person you need to speak to right now. I don't know what this is, but it is. Go over there. What the like, no. Oh, it's lovely, man. But look, for everybody out there are links in the description for you to find this. There's so many, like, little details that I want to get into, but I really don't want to spoil anything for anybody out there, in all sincerity. Like I don't, there's one, I don't want to, look, I don't, it drives me crazy when I am able to read something ahead of time, and then I'm like, I have the creator on, and I'm like, ooh, should I say that, or is that too much of a tell?
Mm-hmm.
As far as within the story and giving something away, or is it just going to help sell the book?
Sure.
It's walking that fine line in running this show, right? It's not just what I'll say is, like, dude, the guy in the basement, like I need to know so much more about him that
Sure.
I don't think you're ever going to tell, are you, Matt?
There's a little more about him. We tell a little bit more about him.
Okay.
Not a ton. I know a lot about him, but in the book there's a little bit more.
I just, that was such a crazy scenario. As far as within that, I don't like. Look, you tell as much of that scenario as you're comfortable with. Then I want to touch on it, and then I'm going to do something terrible.
So in the story, like I said, Annalise lives on this secluded island with her father, who's this mad scientist, and she goes into their basement and finds a man chained up, a very sick, tortured man chained up in her basement. And he sort of tries to coerce her into helping him free him, and in doing so tells her some things that she doesn't know if they're true or not about where she comes from, about her family and stuff. So yeah, that's sort of the scenario.
And I'll say, when I read this, I wasn't sure that he, being her father, was the bad guy.
Uh-huh.
You know, was that intended within the first issue, or are you trying to show this man to be villainous within the first issue? And
So there's a complex answer to this.
Yes,
it was ambiguous if he's a bad guy or not. I wrote it both versions, where there was a version where he's clearly a bad guy and there's a version where he's not clearly a bad guy. And it's possible the version that retailers read and the version you guys read is not the version that we'll see print in 3 weeks. That there's maybe a whole other scene in the book that we left out of for everyone. Well, scenes were relettered and changed, and I made 2 versions of the book.
I'm glad that I had ordered one then.
Yeah, you'll see that it's different. The version you've seen is different than the one in store.
Awesome.
That's intriguing.
That makes me even more want to read it. Sit down and read it again. That's wicked.
Yeah, that makes me want to, when I get it, compare it to the copy that you've sent, you know, more than anything, really. And look,
yeah, there's pretty significant differences. There's like a couple minor things, but then there's things where you'd be like, oh, that's not in the book. So we also sent retailers. We sent all the retailers a copy, and so there's 2,000 copies floating around that are different than the actual book, like physical copies. And retailers are like, oh, cool.
Love that.
They're like, cool, I'll give it to a customer. And I'm like, well, when the book comes out, it's probably people are going to probably want it because it's different. But
I want one of those so bad right now, in all honesty. Because look, if this, because that's one of those, like, if the book blows up, those 2,000 books just got worth a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, they went to every shop, so they're on eBay for like a nickel now because every shop is like, I have this. I don't know if anyone wants it. They're not hard to get for now. Interesting. No one knows that. We haven't told anyone that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to speak to Dave. Yeah,
I'm gonna speak to Warren.
Yeah, look, you got us like we gotta go. You got us like getting ready to go chat to people just to try and get a different copy of your book than another copy, whatever. So with that, for everybody watching, man, go pick it up. Because I don't.
March 26th.
Yeah, March 26th. It's going to be dropping. Like it may already be out. I've got editing to do. Look, but I promise you, Matt, there'll be a little promo that'll be out real soon, because I figured out some things. And you ever gotten that process where you're like, oh, I got to do that like that, and like, it's a growing process as a writer and a podcaster. That's just what it is, man. It's always a quest. That's what life is, right? But I do want to let you all know, right? If you've enjoyed this quest with Matt Rosenberg, first, what I want you to do is go order it, right? Go to your local comic book store. Go to Image. Go to Studio Comics and use that quest or that code Quest24 and get 20% off your order. All right? I'll even try and save you some money on getting that comic book. Now, if you're not up in Canada, that shipping's probably going to kill you, though. I'm not even going to lie. Like, it's probably going to be... All right. So that's only for our Canadian viewers, right? You can get 20% off your order from Studio Comics, right? Right there, right? But beyond that, if you like this, what I want you to do, right, is I want you... Oh, wait, no, sorry. Before I do this, dude, really? You're going to give the aliens ice cream? That's the best answer I've had for that question so far. I freaking love it. That's all I want to say about it. I don't want to say anything else about that. Go check the Patreon. Hopefully I'm going to get all these things updated. I need a freaking intern, right? But beyond that, right, what I want you to do is if you see Matt and you've thoroughly enjoyed this, man, I want you to send him a griffin, right? Just carrying Luke and his X-Wing. I mean the original, from back in the day, right? As well as some Peking duck. I'm mispronouncing that, aren't I?
It depends where you're from. You're either way's fine, I think. If you're,
It's Peking
No.
duck. I'm from Indiana. All right, we'll just leave it like
Yeah.
that. All right. So Griffin, with all that in a nice little package, right? To just sit and chill and watch Star Wars with him. All 9 of them. I hope you don't find any of those unenjoyable, man. But you're gonna have a Griffin, Peking duck, and Luke Skywalker and his X-wing. That should be a baller circumstance, even if you didn't enjoy any of those 9 films. Come on, and you can watch him in whatever order he wants. That's how we're gonna let Matt watch them, because there's too many orders to watch those films. Let's gonna be real honest. Now, that again is if you just enjoyed this quest. Now, if for some reason you haven't enjoyed this quest, I'm gonna ask again. Why are you here? What are you doing? Why did you sit and hate watch something for that long? There's so many things you could do. And go enjoy your time. Your time is finite. Please don't hate watch things. And again, I say this as the man that it is the most beneficial to, for you to sit and watch this, right, in all sincerity. But don't hate watch things, man. Don't. Not even this. Even though it benefits me, please don't hate watch. Go find something you enjoy. Your coil is only so long, right? But if you did, and that's what you hung around for, right? And just Matt's annoyed the right crap out of you for some reason, right? What I want you to do is I want you to send him the creator. I know, look, I'm putting you on a preacher level, like, thing there, right? That's what I'm doing. But you gotta get the creator. You gotta send it straight to Matt, right? And then you gotta go, look, you're getting 2 things, right? One of them, completely unexpected. A ton of kimchi. Just a ton of it. And that's going to come from nowhere. And the other thing, Matt, is you're going to be made to think of all those things that you don't like for the rest of your life. And that's only if you didn't enjoy it, though. And I hope y'all did, and I hope that's why y'all hung around, right? For real, right? I really, really do. And I definitely suggest go pick up that book. There are links in the description. You can find out more about Matt. You can bug him. He is not, he's not the political one, right? So don't send him threats about this and that, because he don't. He writes comics. Now, if you got a problem with, like, a story he did on X-Men or this or that, don't threaten him. Be nice. You can give constructive criticism. That's fine. Don't use things for hate, right? Just like you shouldn't hate watch, right? Besides that, I just want y'all to do 3 things, right? 1, always give it that thumbs up, right? 2, always get your comment going. 3, have a good night, y'all.
This has been the questionnaire.
Where's the link?
Thanks for checking out the questionnaire.
In the link below, yes?
I will drop it like it's hot.
That's another party.
It's cool, man. I love it.
The questionnaire. That is all.